What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well today. This is Raphael Garcia on Monday, December 9th, 2019, and I'm here for episode 39 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I hope you're enjoying the start of your week or whenever you're listening to the show. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. Please be sure to like and follow our content on MMA Ratings net. That's the website where you can go and rate all of our MMA fights that are coming up, and also tell us how excited you are for those that are coming down in the days and weeks and months to come. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at MMA Ratings Net, and you can catch me at rgarcia_sports. And as always, I ask that you like and share our content to the best of your ability to make sure more people see what we're doing here and bring in more listeners. We've gotten some additional subscriptions across YouTube over the last few weeks, and as always, that comes because of your frequent support. So again, thank you for your time in doing so. Today I have three topics I want to talk about. Nothing too big. Where I want to talk about WWE TLC, which is next Sunday, the 15th. Is that the 15th? Yes, this coming Sunday the 15th. I want to talk about AEW and some of their content as well, and what else am I watching in professional wrestling. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in on this Monday morning. And let's start out with WWE. And just, they have a couple of different stories that are at the top of the pipe today. And the first one is yesterday, they did some roster cutting. And in the matter of a few hours, they released Luke Harper, Sin Cara, or the man who plays Sin Cara, who's also Uncio a couple years ago, and they released Connor and Victor, also known as the Extension. And this is it's a pretty intriguing move because both Harper and Sin Cara have been asking for their release. You know, Harper asked for it a few months back, probably around the same time that Sasha Banks came back, and Sin Cara asked for his release right before their London trip before Survivor Series. And the Extension, I haven't seen anything public about them asking for their release, but they haven't been used on TV since probably back to the Breezango angles. I mean, I don't even think I've seen them in any of those tag team battle royals that have been on WWE TV in the recent months. So they just haven't been anywhere. But the question is whether or not these releases are a good or a bad move. And in my opinion, I think it's good for all the parties involved. Out of those four individuals, Sin Cara was the only one who was appearing on TV with any regularity. And you have to say regularity kind of with air quotes, because he was featured in a couple of different matches with Andrade. And if you don't know, those two guys have history together back in Japan. And those matches were good. They were good technical matches, good, enjoyable matches in my opinion. They had him come out with I can't remember the masked woman who wrestled with them, but even in her first match, they were beat. They lost to Andrade and Zelina, so there wasn't any clear direction with that character. But of the four, he was the only one that was really being used. Luke Harper came back for a brief moment as a part of, not even really a part, but he came back with Rowan, and you know that the WWE creative team was going in a different direction with Rowan, more as a singles performer there. And Harper was once again off of television. And there was an interesting comment that I saw from Jonathan Snowden yesterday, I believe, about what is it about Harper that makes people think he's some big time performer that will put on 5-star matches across the world, whether it be in AEW or New Japan or MLW, wherever it may be. And I looked at that and I was like, Harper, he had three big moments on WWE TV. The first was his IC title reign and that ridiculous match against Dolph Ziggler. I think that was at TLC a couple years back, where they stole the show. I mean, I actually want to go back and watch that match now that I think about it, looking at the fact that he's been released, but those two guys put on a clinic from start to finish, and they really stole the show there. So there's that. Then there's also the time where he was in the not the Shield, but the matches that the Wyatt family had with the Shield. Those were some good matches, and they stand out as another moment where he was recognized for his ability to work within the confines of the ring. And there's also the push where people wanted to see him get included in the title picture, where it's Bray Wyatt against Randy Orton, and there was a push to see him get inserted into that storyline as a potential contender as well. But that never came to fruition. He's someone that can work. I like his work style. He's a big man that can go, and that's always a valuable thing. When he came back recently with Rowan, he looked, and I use the term frail loosely, but he looked much, much, much smaller than he did before he went away. Just the way, like, the definition in his arms, and he just looked like a thinner version of himself. He didn't look the part anymore, and I got a little concerned about that because his look was something that stood out to me, and not having that made me wonder if he was as invested as he should have been. Because, if he made a plea to be brought back to TV or to be let go, and in my opinion, people seem to find themselves in that moment, and they come back more invested. They come back in better shape. They come back reinventing themselves. If you look at people like Sasha Banks, when she came back in better shape, looking like a better performer. The Revival, when they were pushing for their release, both of those guys got into better shape when they returned. So you see that more or less as a indicator of whether or not this person is serious or not. And I'm not saying Luke Harper isn't serious. I'm just saying that when he came back with Rowan earlier this year, he didn't quite look the same. And I wonder if that played a part into him being granted his release. These 4 individuals aren't needle movers. To steal a comment from Dana White about Nate Diaz, they're not going to make anyone flip the channel. Luke Harper might for a brief moment, if and when. I think he's going to go to AEW, but he might make someone stop and flip the channel for a hot second. But if Jake Hager isn't one to make me want to watch, I don't think Luke Harper is either. He recently trademarked the Brody name, which is what he wrestled on the independent scene, so I expect him to come back around under that moniker. But even if he does go to AEW, that doesn't have an immediate impact for me. That doesn't make me want to watch that show anymore over NXT at this point in time. I think he has the ability to put on some great matches. Yeah, he could probably get in there and go. Him and Moxley, I mean, I'm sure that they could. That could be a feud right there to kind of play off of the Wyatts versus the Shield from all those years ago. That could be a feud right there. You know that both of those guys can get violent in the ring. So that's something that has value out the gate. But overall, it's just not something that makes me want to stop and immediately watch what they're doing. I think that these releases are good moves for all the parties involved, because if WWE wasn't going to use them on television, then let them go about their way, and let's clear up some roster space and maybe take some of that money and secure some of those who want to be paid more, and keep some of the bigger names around that they're more interested in investing in. So in all, I think this helps everybody included. It helps the WWE, it helps all of these individuals, and I hope that they do find an opportunity within wrestling to continue building their brands and building their names and making a living. That's the important aspect of the industry today, that we're at a point where there are options for these men and women. I think that's what's most important, because you want to see them succeed, and you don't want to see people just fail once they leave the WWE. Another topic I want to talk about within WWE content is TLC, which is this Sunday, as I said, on the 15th. And as of today, there's only 3 matches announced. Tonight is the go-home show on Raw, so you expect something to develop from there. But there are actually no Raw matches announced. We have Roman Reigns versus Baron Corbin. I'm not going to call him King Corbin. Fuck that. Roman Reigns versus Baron Corbin. You have the New Day versus the Revival. You have Bray Wyatt versus The Miz in a non-title match. So yeah, this is pretty weird. There are 0 Raw matches scheduled. This is a week out, and this is like the second or third time this year where a show, a major pay-per-view, has come up and there hasn't been a big card already planned for it. And you have to wonder, why are they doing this? And it's not, it's not that they don't care per se. Sean Ross Sapp was talking about this, pretty interesting, but he thinks that it's because Vince McMahon believes that we as fans, we as viewers, we're going to take whatever's given to us. And that's a strong statement there when you think about it. Excuse me. Think about when you were growing up, and if you complain to your parents about what they made for dinner, and it was like, well, you're not getting anything, and you're going to take what I give you. That's almost akin to what's going on here, because instead of working to give the fans something that gets them excited, gets them to hype to sit around their TV and watch professional wrestling for 5 hours or whatever it may be on that Sunday morning, they're basically telling us, you're going to take whatever we give you, and yeah, that's that. We're not going to change anything around the way. And not only that, what we're going to give you is mediocre within its own right. Outside of the New Day versus the Revival, I don't want to see either of those two matches. Roman Reigns is he is someone who I am prepared to get behind as a professional wrestler. I think he's great. I think he's gotten a lot better. I think he's taken a lot of the feedback that he's gotten and grown from that. But and I like how they're not pushing him directly into the title picture. We know he's probably going to be back at that point in WrestleMania season this year. But I like how they're taking the slow route with him, kind of putting him in a position where the fans decide to cheer him instead of being told this is the guy that you're supposed to cheer with. But even still, this feud with Baron Corbin just doesn't do it for me. They have so many different people on the roster that he could be paired with right now and they could tear the house down. And Baron is not a bad worker at all. If you watch his run during the King of Ring and before then, he is not a bad worker. His matches with Seth Rollins during the whole Seth and Becky and him and Lacey feud, whatever it was, he has good matches. But his character is just so... that it's go away heat for me personally. It's not necessarily, this is the greatest heel in the business right now. In my opinion, it's more go away heat, as in I'm going to turn the television. So that match, I'm not interested in seeing. Bray Wyatt versus The Miz. And the only thing I like about this is the fact that it's the sweater wearing. It's Mr. Rogers' version of Bray Wyatt, because I want to see what he's like in the ring. How is this character different from The Fiend? I've been wanting to see that and see how they characterize the differences between the two. Does he come out to different music? Do they get rid of the lighting? Is his moveset different? I want to see that play out, and I hope they do it differently than they do with The Fiend and, the Demon and Finn Balor, because I never really liked how it was just a man with face paint on. But this is an opportunity for them to show how they can do the multiple personalities between two wrestlers. I think Bray Wyatt is someone who can pull that off. And I also do think that this is going to continue the angle with Daniel Bryan. As you know, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, is when The Fiend basically assaulted Daniel Bryan, was pulling clumps of his hair out, and he was off television this week. So I think they're going to use that to build that angle, and we're going to see some type of comeback or some type of different character for Daniel Bryan on Sunday, and see him attack The Miz. I think that would be fantastic, because obviously him and The Miz have a continued storyline as well. The New Day versus the Revival. You know what this is. These four men are going to go in there and tear down the show. There's nothing that right there I want to see. I don't care how many times the New Day are put in different title matches with different teams. You know that they're going to go in there and they're going to give us something new, and they're going to give us a strong match. They've been doing that for the better part of since 2016 maybe. I believe, I can't really remember when they first came around, but they've been doing that for a very long time. So you see what it is with them, and we know what we're going to get with them. So I am interested in that match and that match alone. But as far as the card as a whole, I really don't care too much. I know that there was rumors of a women's tag team match where Becky and Charlotte were supposed to be booked against Kabuki Warriors. I don't know if that's still going down. I hope it doesn't, because that's all of the major women's titles. No, excuse me, that's 3 of the 4 major women's titles, not including NXT, wrapped up in one storyline. And I think that they're doing a disservice to the women continuously as they lump everyone together and act like there's nothing going on or no other value within any of the women. in those divisions. So hopefully that is off the table and they decide to do something else. But even still, they only have a week to put it together. Yeah, they could probably throw some matches together and give us something interesting, but there aren't any stakes. There's nothing behind it that makes you want to stop and watch. And that is the issue with TLC coming up on Sunday, because I'm not excited to watch because of these very, very reasons. They may announce some matches last minute and throw them together, and it's like, okay, whatever. I'll watch this on demand later on. I have personal plans on Sunday, so I probably won't be in front of a television anyway. And it's just like, yeah, we'll see what happens, and it is what it is. So then it reminds me, because remember a couple years back when a bunch of people got sick last minute and they had to change around. I'm not sure what card it was, but it was the one where we got AJ Styles and Finn Balor like the day before, and the one that Kurt Angle came back with the Shield. Like, it was literally the day before that they told us. That made me stop and wanted to watch and see everything what was going to go down. That's a different type of surprise than what they're probably going to give us on Sunday, and that is a continued issue with WWE content that I think that they need to correct. And we continue hoping that they're going to fix it. We continue saying, okay, well, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next quarter, but that never comes, and that's what is pretty much difficult with within the professional wrestling industry. Next thing I wanted to talk about was John Hennigan, also known as John Morrison, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Impact, whatever the name he's going by. He has officially re-signed with WWE. I wrote about this maybe about 2 months ago for Daily DET, and he was kind of playing off of like, not really knowing about it, but whatever is whatever, because it was officially announced the other day. And now he's back. So I wonder how they're going to use him. Because remember, when he was in WWE all those years ago, he wasn't necessarily the main guy. He had the look of someone that they wanted to be the main guy, but he wasn't the main guy. And he's gone off. He's gone to other organizations. And he's had some big moments there. He's had some big moments in Lucha Underground. He has some big moments at Impact. He has some big moments across other platforms. And it's interesting to see how he brings that back. I am intrigued to see him come back to WWE and how they use him. How do they position him? Do they position him as a big threat? Do they position him as a big star? What do they use him as? I saw people talking about he should be used kind of the way that what's his name, AJ Styles was used, and given a big prominent run. Excuse me. I don't think that will be the case, but let's see what goes down, because I think that there is opportunity there for everyone on there's opportunity for Impact. Well, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Morrison, John Hennigan, whatever the hell his name will be when he returns. There's an opportunity there for him to have an impact, and I am interested in seeing what he looks like when he comes back to WWE. Let me see. The last thing I wanted to talk about was also something else that happened last night, where Sami Zayn there's a video of him going around confronting a fan who was yelling some homophobic slurs and stuff like that while Sami Zayn was out at the ring. I think it was a cage match or something like that going on, and you see Sami getting fired up, getting in the guy's face, and you see security have to step in and kind of push him back. And everyone is praising Sami for his actions, and I believe that that's cool. Like, yes, I am glad that he stood up for a marginalized group. I am glad that Sami has consistently shown a willingness to stand up for a marginalized group of people. I think that's important. That's what we need in more spaces such as professional wrestling today, because we see that professional wrestling is an industry where the target demographic, there are toxicity problems within the target demographic. We see it online all day, every day. We see it in comments. We see it with some of these podcasts that are coming up that you listen to what some of the people say. You see it in some big names that people are just foolish when it comes to professional wrestling and how they behave. And one thing that stood out to me is that if you see Sami yelling at the guy and you see security backing him up, but the dude had the most smug look on his face, because he knew that Sammy couldn't do anything to him, and that really made my skin crawl, because he was there with his kids, and he's going to turn around and do the same thing next time he goes to a show. He's going to do the same thing next time he gets on Twitter or goes to Instagram and follows one of these profiles that just look at just features around women's asses or whatever. He's going to continue to do that, and it's unfortunate because professional wrestling has almost become a safe space for this type of behavior. And it's consistent with just the type of commentary that you see, not necessarily from the promotions themselves, although there are some very problematic promotions in the industry, but enough of the big voices in professional wrestling do not speak out about this type of behavior, and they make it a safe space for it. That's why I'm going to be talking about NWA Power in a second, and why I'm no longer watching their content, because what they did with Jim Cornette. And that's just one example. How many times do we see wrestlers saying homophobic stuff, liking homophobic content, liking transphobic content, liking racist content or whatever, like Jake Hager, for example. There was a comment the other day about Tommaso Ciampa and his Blue Lives Matter statement. It's like, man, like we can't continue every week to look up and there be another instance of where those from minority communities are reminded that, hey, professional wrestling may not be the safest space for you, because the fan base themselves are very toxic, and they have an inherent ability to broadcast their voice in a protected way, because you see a lot of individuals who are bigger names in the industry protecting them, giving them a platform, giving them space to be out of control, giving them space to behave the way that they do. So when they go to these shows, they feel okay yelling out the stuff that they're yelling out. And that is problematic within its own right. So seeing Sami Zayn get in this fan's face and basically chew them the hell out, yeah, that's fantastic. But let's talk about the broader issues within professional wrestling that don't seem to be getting any better because people don't even really want to talk about it. Topic number 2 for today. I wanted to talk a little bit about AEW. Not too much though, because to be honest, I am not the biggest fan following their content. First and foremost, I teach on Wednesday, so I have a hard time catching AEW live. I was home last Wednesday and I was able to catch their content live, and it was okay. Or the week before last, actually. Their character development doesn't necessarily get me excited. I enjoy watching some of the more prominent. I enjoy watching Moxley. I enjoy watching Pac. Kenny Omega, I'm a fan of his. Chris Jericho, of course, obviously. Scorpio Sky, SCU. There are pieces of that group I am very interested in. I'm interested in seeing Ray Phoenix. I'm interested in seeing how Trent Beretta and Jack Evans. Jack Evans and Helico. Who's Trent Beretta's partner? Kip Sabian? That might be it. But I'm interested in, like, those individuals are kind of standing out to me. Obviously, Rio, Big Swole, Chris Statlander, some of the women that they have on the roster, Sanaya, whatever her name is. They have an interesting character base, but they also have the other characters that I don't want to watch. I don't want to see Jake Hager. Dark Order, no thank you. I don't care for the Butcher, the Bunny, and the Blade. I don't care for that type of professional wrestling. So it makes it hard for me to want to sit and watch it through and through. NXT I can watch because I feel like NXT is more of like the hard-hitting type of wrestling that I enjoy a little bit more so, even more than any other WWE content. So that's why for me, I'll always pick that show over the other. And I get AEW is trying to do things differently, and I appreciate different, because different doesn't always mean wrong, and different doesn't always mean right either. So I appreciate what they're doing, and I appreciate the space that they're trying to create in professional wrestling. I find it odd that the narrative about AEW's fan base being so much younger, because that's the demographic that they continue winning. But, I guess I'm not cool then. I don't know. I don't know what the hell it may be, because like I'm just not interested in a lot of their content. There are pieces that are working for me, but there are some that just aren't, and it is what it is. We're always entitled to our own opinion. I will watch their content. I will support their content when I have opportunities to find it. I like the fact that they're going to quarterly pay-per-views. I think that's important. I like the fact I'm loving what Cody is doing. I'm loving what Pac is doing, like I said. So there's a lot of things to take from there. I'm looking forward to Jericho and Moxley and that angle and how they play that out. So yeah, there's a lot of space to kind of get excited about AEW, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is the platform that's always doing it for me. I watch AEW Dark every week. So that's kind of how I'm getting introduced to a lot of their wrestlers. But, it is what it is for me right now. I think one thing I believe that they are doing right is they're listening to people complaining about how they're treating their women's division. If you saw last week, that's where they had the Chris Statlander match. I can't remember who she faced. Was it Lena Bates? I can't remember who it was that she faced off with, but that she had Chris Statlander. It was being presented as a star, and I think she's someone who is interesting. Hearing all of the talk about her made me stop and want to turn around and go figure out who she was. So I've been kind of looking at her Instagram, looking at past matches to get a better understanding of her. Big Swole is actually making her AEW Dynamite debut this week against Emi Sakura. She better get a win too. Big Swole has not won a match yet. She's been on Dark, I think, 3 or 4 times. And people have been saying, hey, bring her over to the live show because she is a character and personality. And her match that she had, the last AEW Dark match, she won me over. I am a fan of any person of color that is a wrestler out there. I'm especially a fan of any person of color who's out there, woman of color who's out there competing as well, especially when that looks different from the rest of the pack. And she stands out. And I like her personality in the ring. I love when she does that little James Brown shuffle, whatever. All of that stuff works for me. So I'm interested in seeing what they do with her and how they build the women's division. I don't want to see a women's division built around Britt Baker. I'm sorry, I don't. You have Rio there. You have a lot of the Japanese women that can go. You have Big Swole. You have Chris Statlander. I think Bea Priestley looks different. So I want to see something different than just being given more of the same cookie cutter type of women that are usually being pushed down our throat by WWE. So I'm glad to see AEW doing something a little bit different there. And hopefully they do build up their women's division more than they have in the last few months. So what else am I watching? And there's, like, as always, there's a lot of professional wrestling going on across the space. We live in a time where it's so much easier to access everything through on-demand platforms, through free streaming like YouTube. There's something always out there for everyone, and you can just kind of hop online and get it at a cost. Do not be one of those people who steals content from these promotions. But what am I watching? I'm going to start with what I'm not watching. And that's NWA Power, as I mentioned earlier. After the Jim Cornette situation, I skipped that show and was like, I'm not gonna watch it. Then they allowed him to resign, which I thought was interesting because he resigned because he didn't want to apologize for what he said. Anyone who's familiar with Jim Cornette, they know how stubborn and how hard-headed he can be. So to go along with that, there's also the fact that comment made it through editing at some point in time. Dave Lagana has been caught retweeting hateful messaging on Twitter where he's trying to delete it, but I've seen the screenshots around that as well too. But the final straw came this week when NWA Power, they had the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky